Hello, everybody. Welcome to Autobeat Live. I'm Gary Vaslash. I'm the editor-in-chief of Autobeat. Again, want to welcome you to what I believe will be a information-packed half hour regarding what's going on in the auto industry and, importantly, what will be going on in the auto industry. So you can sort of get a sense of where we'll be going in the months and years ahead. So in order to do that, my very special guest this morning is Sam Fiorani, who is the Vice President of Global Vehicle Forecasting for Auto Forecast Solutions. So you sort of get this thing that there's a whole lot of forecasting going on. So Sam, welcome to the show. Appreciate your being here.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So okay, before I get into the questions, and speaking of questions, if you have them, please write them in, and I will try to see them and ask Sam those questions as we get them. Sam, give us a brief synopsis of what Auto Forecast Solutions is all about.
Well, we provide information, analytical, and consulting services to the auto industry, primarily for tier ones, OEMs, tier twos, and financial houses and such. Anyone who needs to know what's going to go on in the auto industry, how to make your business better, we like to provide the direct services. So we can, when our customers need some help, they call us directly and say, I'm looking for this information. Can you explain what's going on in this world? And that's what we provide. We do a forecast by vehicle and by powertrain going out through 2027, by plant around the world. We cover about 60 countries around the world.
So you have a perfect segue there. So people call you up and say, hey, what is going on? All right. So given the crazy world we're in right now, given the world of COVID, what are the consequences that you see in terms of what's going on right now in the industry? I mean, as the industry is coming back, as the factories are now all open, what are the consequences now, and what do you see happening as we go forward?
Well, I'm hoping that these the manufacturers will understand that they've accidentally right-sized their inventories so that the dealerships have the right vehicles on the lots, and as they build up the volume again from manufacturing, they will fill in all the vehicles that they need to sell. The problem is that manufacturers don't do that. Manufacturers try to build as many as possible and try to push out everybody else. And in order to do that, they got to throw money on the hood. So at the moment, dealers are selling everything they can sell with relatively limited inventory or incentives on their vehicles. But once the volume gets back up and manufacturing is at full force and dealers have full inventory, then they're going to have to throw money on the hood just to get rid of these products. And we saw in the last quarter, the manufacturers made a lot of money. Well, they can do that in the future too if they keep the inventories at the right levels. But every time they throw money on the hood, that's coming out of their bottom line.
Of course, isn't that sort of the model, though, that it's generally said that Americans like to go to a dealership and buy a car. I mean, that they show up and if they're beginning to walk away, the dealer says, well, I've got this red one. I know you want a blue one, but I've got this red one and I'll throw in the mats. And if we look at what goes on in Europe, say, people order cars. So we build to stock, they build to order.
Yeah, no, you talk to people who buy cars and it's either what they enjoy or what they hate. And there's very little in between.
Right.
I personally like the negotiation process, but a lot of people hate having to sit there for 2 or 3 hours and talk to the salesman about what they're getting, and then have them come back and no, I can make you a better deal, and here's another $1,000 on the hood. I've had everything from sunroofs thrown into cars to, it's just, it's amazing what they will do to get the car sold at that last minute. But if it's the car you want, you should be able to get it.
So let's talk a little bit about the fact of, the factory shut down. People were still out buying cars. The amount of inventory shrunk. The factories went back into operation. Was there a tendency on behalf of the big three to really concentrate on producing the full-size SUVs and light-duty pickups that they were making lots of money on at the expense of, say, other vehicles?
Well, they're going to go for the big models first. And at this point, it's whatever they could build. If the suppliers were providing the right parts for the expensive models, I'm sure those were the first ones out the door. But with the whole pandemic, the issue has been making sure you had enough parts. Too many suppliers have had issues with the health of their workers, and all the way up to the manufacturers, keeping everybody safe, making sure that we could get the workforce healthy and get the vehicles out the door. Vehicles were almost secondary to making sure that we had the workers safe, and getting them paid. They need to work.
Well, safe and paid are both two good things. I'm fully in favor of that, as I'm sure you are as well. But okay, so let me switch gears a little bit here and ask you about this. So, you were saying that they were building pretty much whatever they could under the circumstances. One of the phenomenons that we've seen in the domestic side of the auto industry, meaning General Motors, Ford, and FCA, is the fact that they have all moved away essentially from making sedans. Okay. And the question that I have to you is that, what led to this phenomenon? Why are they giving it up when, if you look at what's going on at Toyota, Nissan, Honda, Kia, Hyundai, they still have full-size sedans, mid-size sedans, compact cars. I mean, why did the historic big three give up on cars?
The story goes back to the 80s when Cafe was in full force in the 80s. It was more important to build cars to offset. So you had to have a small car to offset the big car. The big car made money. The small car had the gas mileage. So you had to offset them, which is why we shifted towards trucks, because trucks had a lower threshold for the Cafe, and they made money. So you didn't have to worry about selling your Escort at a loss to sell your Crown Vic at a profit. So you could sell an Explorer and they would all make money. Move forward to the newer version of Cafe, and now we're talking about footprints where we don't have the small car offsetting the big car anymore. It's all the cars within the same footprint have to offset each other. So now it's not worth it to build a sedan for the big three. We can make a ton more money on full-size trucks, on full-size sport utilities. Toyota and Nissan haven't done so well in their trucks, on their big trucks. They do very well on mid-size trucks and crossovers and such, but in the cars, they have the market to themselves. If you want a mid-sized car, you're looking at a Hyundai, a Kia, a Toyota, a Nissan. That's pretty much it. And the buyers for mid-sized cars, like myself, are going away. We are a smaller and smaller group.
So do you think that this phenomenon is going to be something that will occur for the Asian brands, or will they stick with car manufacturing?
They're going to stick with car manufacturing as long as they can, as long as there's money in it for them. But the problem is that the market is shifting. And if you look at it, even sales of Accords and Camrys are sliding. The new Hyundai and Kia are doing fairly well, but as they age, they're going to slip too. And when you go to the domestic manufacturers, you have the choice of a Cadillac or Malibu, and that's the only sedans you can get now. And when you go to the imports, you can get a few, but they're slowly moving over. Honda is reorganizing their whole lineup so that they can get more crossovers and more sport utilities. That's where the money is.
So let's talk about that for a minute. Okay, so we're seeing this situation where there is just a vast proliferation of crossovers of every size, every price point. Everyone's got them. Now, I'm going to say that maybe 3 or 4 years ago, if we were looking at this, that some OEMs are doing very well in that space because there was a limited number of vehicles available. Now there is just a wide array of vehicles available, and while the numbers are going up for manufacturers, some are still keeping the lion's share of the business, while the others are just in it because they
Right.
need to be there. Um, I mean, what's your forecast as you're looking forward to the next several years in terms of the viability of continuing to slice this ever thinner and thinner crossover segment of the market?
Well, it's still growing, so we still have that going for us. But on the other side, they're adding new variations. The coupe version of a crossover is the next generation. If I look at a sport utility or a crossover as a car, it's the crossover is the sedan, and the coupe, even though it has 4 doors, is your sportier version. It's your Mustang, it's your Camaro. It's going to fill in the gap where that used to be, where that buyer used to go down there. They may not be looking for the handling of a sports car anymore, but they are looking for the features and the look and the performance. So that we're spreading out the idea of crossover into different types of vehicles. So it's still got room to grow, but there's going to be a point where they saturate this whole market, and then you're going to see money on the hood, just like you see on the sedans today. And it's going to happen. It's competition. The more vehicles you get out there, the more manufacturers selling vehicles, the more you're going to need to encourage the buyer to buy your product. And it's going to happen. It's just the way capitalism works.
One of the things I wonder about is as we go into the segmentation of crossovers. Remember the Nissan Murano Cross Cabrio,
Yeah.
the convertible version of that? I mean, it's like it went nowhere. Okay, I mean, it's just so.
But it's an idea that someone was trying. Land Rover did the same thing. Land Rover had
Right.
a convertible version of the Evoque. They're trying everything. It's trying to find that little niche that's going to make you money, something that's different from the competition. The crossovers are crossovers. They're a box on wheels based on a car platform. They get good gas mileage. They handle fairly well. They have the off-road sense about them. They mostly have 4-wheel drive, things like that. It's a recipe that everybody has. Now,
So,
go ahead.
Okay, you mentioned that they make money off of these things. Okay, so why does Chevy make money off of an Equinox and not make money off of a Malibu?
The market's bigger. There's more demand, and at the moment, less supply than the demand. So you get people coming in and say, "Oh, that's worth a little bit more. Look, it sits a little higher. Look, it has a little bit more room. It may cost the same to build, but it's going to be more profit to General Motors than to the Malibu, which I have to sell to fleets to get them off the showroom floor. They're just not selling to the general public, and so I'm going to have to discount them. I'm going to have to find somebody to take a dozen of these off my hands to put them into their corporate fleet."
So, from a planning point of view, if someone is looking right now, and they're a supplier and they're saying, okay, I've got to plan my business future out 5 years from now. If that supplier is supplying car lines, unless it's for a Toyota or a Honda or a Hyundai, they perhaps ought to reconsider what they're doing.
If it's a car specific part, you're going to be looking at the next generation being a crossover. But if it's a platform part, and we do a lot of work with working top down with our customers and explaining that if you're on a particular platform, that platform is built on a whole bunch of different vehicles around the world. So your part may transfer over to other vehicles. So you may supply a part in North America, but that vehicle is also built in Japan or in Germany or somewhere else in the world. And you can just transfer your knowledge, potentially transfer the same part over to another vehicle in another market, in another segment. And it could just be moving it, because crossovers are so based on cars, whereas sport utilities traditionally were body on frame and completely different than the cars that were in the same showroom. Crossovers share a lot of parts, from engines, transmissions, the platform, even to some structure parts. It's easier to move your part over to another vehicle.
Okay, so it's as long as the platform is something that has other uses beyond a car,
that one car, yeah.
You may have some opportunity there.
And a lot of these platforms sell in the millions of units around the world. They produce, as many as 9 million units on a platform around the world. So you can look around and say that this part transfers over to something else. You may have to take the business away from another client, from another supplier, but there's business to be had for the part or a similar part to the part you make.
Mm-hmm. We were talking earlier about how now that the plants are reopened and everybody's ramping up production and turning up the dial to as high as they can possibly do it. You guys did some research that seemed to indicate that capacity utilization at many of the automakers is at 80% or below, and it seems that only Toyota is above that. So, do you see the possibility that in the next few years we may see some plant closures occurring as a result of this excess capacity?
The current excess capacity is temporary. It's COVID related, but
Okay.
there are a number of plants in North America that do need to get a new product, to expand their market share, to do something in order to remain viable. Too many plants, especially in North America, have gone too long without enough product, and so we're encouraging some of these manufacturers to look into something new. The transition towards BEVs is going to be a big one as they try to fill out these plants with electric vehicles. And the market isn't quite there yet. So if we're planning to fill this plant with electric vehicles, you better make sure that there's enough buyers out there for those vehicles to produce 200, 250, 300,000 units to fill that plant and keep all those workers working, or else you're going to have to shut down a plant or two.
Okay, so AutoForce Cast Solutions is not bullish on battery electric vehicles right now.
This is true.
Okay, now all of the buzz out there is all about battery electric vehicles right now.
Absolutely.
Okay, so explain to me why you guys think what you think.
We haven't proven that there's a market yet for BEVs. BEVs are the future. They will be in the future. The problem is that nobody's buying them yet. If you take Tesla out of the picture, the market share in North America is roughly 1%. And it has been flat for a long time. It's actually less than 1% if you take Tesla out of the picture. To us, Tesla is not an electric vehicle as much as it is a performance vehicle that happens to be electric. And people are buying it on the performance and on the Tesla image. So they're buying the nameplate and the image of, my neighbor sees that Tesla in my driveway, I've made it. So it's different than buying a Nissan Leaf and parking it in your driveway because it's an EV. The market will catch up eventually. It's just going to take a lot longer than a lot of these manufacturers think it's going to take. At least on paper, it's longer than they're planning for it to take.
All right, so let me ask you. I mean, so you mentioned it will be the vehicle of choice in the future. When is the future?
It's got to be at least 10 years out before we get a significant market share of EVs at least in North America. Europe is different, and China is definitely different because they're being pushed differently. The emissions regulations in Europe are encouraging this much faster than they are in North America. And then there's the governmental push on the Chinese side to encourage EV use there. But in North America, it's going to take a long time for buyers to warm up to this idea. It doesn't matter if California says you have to have nothing but EVs by 2035. The market is not going to be there as fast as they want without cash, without some other encouragement. California has things like HOV, the ability to drive in the HOV lane, things like that. It may take some non-monetary things as well as money, but it's going to take a lot of encouragement to get people into these cars and realize they're real cars and they're viable replacements for your car in 99% of what you do.
So why is it that a company like General Motors is literally investing billions of dollars in getting capacity in places like Detroit Hamtramck and in Spring Hill, Tennessee, to make electric vehicles? I mean, this doesn't seem to be a reasonable use of money right now, does it?
Stock price. They want their stock price to go up. These are companies that are valuable companies. They have lots of assets. They make good revenue. They make decent profits. But Wall Street doesn't care. Wall Street doesn't see them as they see them as a relic. And so the pushing the EVs shows them as a modern, forward-thinking company, and could make the stockbrokers look at them a second time and go, hey, they might be worth more than $10 a share or $15 a share. When you have companies like Tesla coming in here and being worth billions of dollars over a legacy car company that is selling millions more product than you, that's on Wall Street. That's somebody else anticipating that company is worth more for some other reason, because it's future thinking, because it's the next generation. And General Motors and Ford are thought of as legacy, as old school.
So speaking of electric vehicles and bright shiny things, so we've seen the Tesla Cybertruck, which is supposedly coming. We have seen Rivian's going to be coming out with an electric pickup truck. Lordstown Motors will have a fleet type electric pickup truck. Nikola is supposedly going to have General Motors build the Badger pickup truck for it, which will be either an battery electric or a hydrogen powered vehicle. The electric F-150 is supposed to be coming. An electric Silverado is supposed to be coming, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, here's my question to you, Sam. Are these the real deal? Are they a novelty, or are they something that will be largely fleet use only, as the Lordstown Motors model seems to have it?
I don't anticipate these things showing up as replacing a Raptor in your driveway anytime soon, but they do make sense as a commercial vehicle. They do make sense for contractors, for delivery people, for things like that, where you have a set route. You're typically not going to do long terms at 70 miles an hour. You're going to be driving from place to place to place, stopping a lot, which is great for electric vehicles because gas engines turning on and off is not very efficient. So you stop place to place, you go back to the same place every night to recharge. It's a limited route. It's a set route, and you always come home to charge. It makes a lot of sense for an electric vehicle. And these vehicles take very little maintenance. They should last a long time aside from battery longevity, but there's fewer moving parts to break. Uptime is a great thing when you're working with commercial trucks, and these vehicles have the potential of having a lot of uptime, low cost in the long run, no maintenance, virtually no maintenance. This is a good market to go into because people who buy commercial trucks spend money. These are not cheap vehicles. When you're a contractor and you need a pickup truck, and so it's going to be a heavy duty truck to haul all the stuff that you need, and you're willing to pay for it because it's your tool. It's what you do for your job, and these make sense.
So do you see this catching on more quickly than the so-called Tesla fighters, that we're seeing, various companies coming out with to take on the Model 3 or the Model Y, that basically, as you're saying, that contractors will buy electric trucks because it makes more sense for their business, because the total cost of ownership is reduced compared to owning a vehicle with an internal combustion engine, and therefore that market may grow, comparatively faster than consumer products.
Yeah, no, it's selling it to a consumer is the problem, because you have to get them off of their preconceived notions of range anxiety, of lack of charging infrastructure, of just the fact that it takes a while to charge, and you have to remember to plug it in when you get home at night. All these little things that you don't do with an internal combustion engine. I get in my car, I drive my car. If I need gas, I pull over. It takes me 5 minutes to fill up, and I continue going. I can't do that with an electric vehicle. And buyers don't realize that their car will be full when they leave in the morning. So it's not quite the same thing. There's a lot of mindset change that you have to do to a consumer to get them to want to buy one of these cars, even though they are fantastic cars. We've driven a bunch of these different vehicles, and we haven't had a bad one yet. From the Tesla Model S down to a Bolt, they're fantastic cars to drive. But trying to get enough people to spend 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, $80,000 on an electric vehicle, when a perfectly good BMW or Chevy Cruze or something else is sitting around, why would I spend the extra money on the limitations that I've already had in my head for that vehicle?
All right. So let me ask you this, going back to this theoretical supplier. So let's say that I'm a supplier and I'm making parts that go into a Ram 1500 or a Silverado or a Sierra or an F-150 or a Ranger or whatever else. I mean, you mentioned that an electric vehicle has fewer parts, fewer components. This means fewer things to make. What's your suggestion for a company that is making parts for a traditional pickup?
A lot of those removed parts are powertrain, and so you still have a full interior. You still have componentry. You still have seats. You still have seat belts. You still have interior. Those suppliers are still going to be there. On the powertrain side, if you're an internal combustion component supplier, a transmission supplier, you'll still have a job. In the best case scenario for 2030, 80% of the vehicles have a gas engine in them. So you're still going to have that traditional powertrain on the vast majority of vehicles. If you're in that for the long term, you may have to look 30, 40, 50 years down the road and say, we're going to have to look at something else. I'm not making buggy whips here. So you have to see the future coming. It's just not around the corner. It's down the road a little bit.
Okay. But to your point that in 2030, if there's still 80% traditional internal combustion engine vehicles, this means 20% of your business may have gone away.
It may have, yes. And in that case, somebody is going to have to either move on to something else or go out of business. So the potential is there for us to lose some suppliers, but the dynamic suppliers are going to find something else to make to stay relevant.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we're coming toward the end. You recently just did a big study on the FCA PSA merger and the creation of Stellantis. Okay, so briefly, what do you see the consequences of that combination for the suppliers that are in North America presently providing FCA with product?
If you look at the past history of PSA absorbing Opel Vauxhall, of Fiat and Chrysler, of even back to Daimler Chrysler, the Chrysler side, the North American side of the company, has actually grown. It has taken parts from the other companies, brought in platforms from Fiat, and made the Jeep Cherokee, made the Jeep Compass, added a lot of products to the lineup, harnessing the platforms that the other company had. It has filled out the plants. It has increased the number of sales from FCA, from the North American side of FCA. So local suppliers have a great ability of finding new parts, new vehicles, new opportunities within the greater good. And then globally, the whole company should blossom by tailoring all the parts that they have for each market, and allowing that whole system to grow organically. It'll be a great development for the company.
So you're bullish on this combination?
Absolutely. I think this is a great mixture for the two companies.
Okay. All right. So I see we're at the bottom of the hour. So Sam, how can people get in touch with you or with Auto Forecast Solutions? Website
you can visit our website at autoforecastsolutions.com. We are on all social media. So we have a YouTube channel where we post videos all the time of basically white papers and sales and production information. And we're on Twitter at Auto Forecast. Check us out on Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and our website.
Great. Well, I want to thank you for your time and for your knowledge. It's always great seeing you and having the opportunity to talk with you. So
great to talk to you, Gary.
Appreciate it, Sam. So for everyone else, Autobeat Live will be back on December 3rd. So please mark that on your calendar. We will have Lori Harbour on, who is the president of Harbor Research, who has done extensive studies of tooling as related to the auto industry. So please join us then. It will be 10 o'clock Eastern time. So whatever time zone you're in, adjust accordingly. So again, thanks for watching, and see you next month. Take care.